Hello and welcome back to the Now We Know Show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
I'm Buzz, and this week we're looking into the exciting and fascinating world of wild camping.
Ooh. If you enjoy the Now We Know Show podcast, support Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon or join our members on YouTube for early access, ad-free content and exclusive episodes. To start with, I think we have to ask the question, what is wild camping and how is it distinguished from just normal camping?
That is a very good question and probably the best question to start with. The term wild camping has become synonymous in the sort of media across the board, especially since things such like COVID, where people couldn't fly and go abroad, and then suddenly
Don't they call it like staycations or something like that?
Yeah, people were having staycations, and then suddenly there was a big explosion in wild camping, in brackets, and of course then that hits the media and all the newspapers and the TV news and everything is saying, oh, wild camping this, wild camping that, and the term wild camping becomes like a
Very
buzz.
broad.
Yeah, well, it becomes like
Broad,
this buzz terminology. So as you asked, what actually is wild camping,
Yes.
and what's the difference between that
I'm
and normal
intrigued.
camping?
I'm intrigued to know.
Well, our good friend Chaz Albrighton once said to me when I was having a conversation about wild swimming, he said to me, isn't wild swimming just swimming? And I kind of went, well, yeah. Okay, you kind of got me there. And wild camping, yeah, I know what Chaz would say. He'd say, isn't wild camping just camping? And I can see where he's coming from on both the wild swimming and the wild camping, if that was the case. However, my job is initially to obviously explain what wild camping is for those people that may think they know what it is or have no idea what I'm talking about. But one thing I will tell you is wild camping is really, really fun.
Yes, I was going to say that because we have actually been wild camping a few times.
Oh, I've been wild camping all my life, and obviously you've grown up doing wild camping.
Yes, I did have a recent trip
probably
that kind of prompted this podcast.
With all the years of you doing wild camping, I don't think you've ever really considered it being, or even thought about the term wild camping. To you, it's just being out in the wild, camping. So on that point, Chaz would have a point to say it's
just camping.
Just camping. However, we need to put a kind of an explanation in. And I'm going to start by saying not all wild camping is wild camping, but the media love to blanket coat, tar and feather.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Tar and feather everything with the same thing. And of course, what happens is those people that aren't wild camping, but are being destructive, that are being
disrespectful,
you nailed it, they then have the knock-on effect of tar and feathering the true wild campers. However, let's not get too carried away at the moment about the ins and outs of it. Let's just look at what is wild camping. So in its most basic form, there's most basic kind of explanation as to what differentiates wild camping from camping is that camping is when you go camping on a campsite.
Yeah.
And wild camping is when you're not on a specified campsite.
So would you say that paying to camp on a campsite is just normal camping, or has become, is considered normal camping?
Yeah, I would say that if you, when people say, oh, I'm going camping for the weekend, the majority of the time, 9 out of 10's time, is because people are already have or are going to book a campsite.
Yes.
They're going to get a pitch on a campsite. They're either going to be there for a weekend, a week, or tour around from campsite to campsite. But basically, you've got campsites which vary because a campsite can be as basic as, say, camping in the New Forest, where I've been on a campsite which literally was in a part of the forest, had kind of bays, if you like, within the bracken and the brambles. And the thing was, you paid to go into the campsite, but you could only camp there if you had your own facilities, because there were no toilet. I don't think there was even a standpipe for water. It was literally, that's as basic as it gets. But you couldn't camp there unless you had your facilities with you, and I was camping there because I was in a camper van at the time.
Right.
And then, of course, then you go to the opposite end, where, for example, I was in, in fact, you were with me at the time.
You're talking about
when we went to, we went to Cornwall.
Oh, okay.
And we literally arrived in little place near Charlestown, and we were literally just wanted a site, somewhere to pitch up for the night.
Mm-hmm.
And we went into the only campsite that was in the local area.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like a pitch for the night. That's fine. Now, remember, anybody listening to this was a good few years ago, and I was used to paying sort of like £10 to stick my tent up for the night.
Yeah.
And that's fine. They had a pitch, but it was £35 for the night.
Ouch.
And at the time, I could get a hotel room for less than that.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, £35?
Are you going to put it up for me?
Are you going to put my tent up for me, take it down for me, pack it away? I don't need electrical hookup. I don't need anything. I just literally need a patch of ground. Ah, yes, sir. But this is a 5-star campsite with all the facilities and the club room and the swimming pool and the sauna and this and the that and the other. So this is the thing. When you're camping, you might want to camp and go to a site that has all those facilities.
Like carry on camping.
Yeah, right, that's it. Whereas wild camping is you're just simply not on a paid site.
Right.
You're in the wild. However, I must point out, as I say, I don't believe that all wild camping is in fact wild camping. And let's start off with the dark side of it. When you get these groups of people, male, female, mix, whatever age they happen to be, and they go and buy their £20 disposable tents.
Yeah, it could be like a group of youths trying to go out into the wild.
They go and get the
£20
disposable tents. They get their ground-based disposable barbecues.
Oh, they're the worst, aren't they?
They get 2 bags each of booze, and they go out to a beauty spot, pitch these tents up, have their barbecues, scorch the ground, then start snapping branches off of living trees and bushes, dump it on top of the barbecue to try and have a campfire, leave all their beer cans and empty bottles of hooch all over the place, and even leave their tents there the next morning.
Yeah, because they can't get them back in the bag.
They go, I can't be bothered to try. Yeah, I've bought a pop-up one, and it won't go there, but I'll just leave it. Cost me 20 quid.
Yeah, it's like cheap enough to just,
That is not wild camping.
Definitely not.
Is disrespectful vandalism. Okay, that is just vandalising the countryside.
Yeah,
that is being a little out.
Very detestable.
You know, I hate all of that. But unfortunately, it's that kind
that
of
has the
attitude
knock-on effect, doesn't it?
That really stops everybody else being able to enjoy wild camping. However, there is another side to wild camping, which again is not wild camping. And for that, I'll use the example. I was watching a programme which had Paul Merton and his wife, and they were touring around in a camper van. And I was interested in it because they were touring around the south of England, from place to place to place. And I always like a programme like that because you never know what you might see on a programme and go, oh,
there's a nice place.
Didn't know that was there.
That's quite cool.
I
might go visit
that. Exactly. Anyway, 2-3 episodes in, and then they started saying, tomorrow night we're going to be wild camping, because up until that point every day they'd taken their camper van and chonked into a mobile camper van site, into their
their hookup, had all their facilities,
gone, and that's it, and then gone to the next place. But unless I was intrigued, they're in a camper van, they're going wild camping.
Okay,
what's going to happen?
I'm intrigued to what you're going to say now.
And so in the episode which finished with them wild camping, they went to a farm.
Okay.
Where the farmer allowed them to park in his field.
In the van?
In the van.
Okay.
And then they cooked themselves a roast dinner because they got a fully fitted kitchen and oven and everything in the camper van.
Right.
And they sat outside on their nice chairs and table, having a glass of wine. And then in the evening, they finished off and they were videoing themselves talking about what they'd done in that day, sitting in their double bed in a separate bedroom because of the size of this camper van, with all the full electric lights on. And that's them wild camping.
Hang on, what? That was classified as wild camping. How does that distinguish from being on the campsite pictures?
Exactly. The only difference is they didn't have an electrical hookup. They were using their own toilet and shower facilities in the van.
That's not wild camping.
So this is my point. Wild camping is not wild camping in everybody's eyes. Okay? So they kept using the term wild camping, and I'm sorry, that for me is not wild camping. So, as I say, in its basic form, it just means not paying to pitch on a campsite.
Mm-hmm.
And so you are going to be off in the woods, out on the hills, in the mountains, on the coast.
Would it be
wherever.
like a planned trip that you would go somewhere to do this?
Oh,
or
yes.
could it be a very impromptu kind of, I'm going to go camping today, where I'm going to go? Where do I find myself?
Yeah, you did that the other day, didn't you?
That is true.
Yeah, you decided loose end, you wanted to just clear your head.
Yes.
You grabbed your backpack.
Went on a hike about 10 miles away. I didn't even really know where I was going to go.
No.
But I just found myself where I did. And I set up my camp for the night. Yeah. And I stayed there.
What I will say...
It's quite fun.
What I will say, because I know that this is what you did, you followed public footpaths.
That is true. Yeah. I always must recommend an OS map. They are awesome.
Yeah, so you followed public footpaths and then you found yourself in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And you stepped off the path.
And
pitched your tent halfway through, stayed there the night. Mm-hmm. And then when you left, nobody would have even known you were there.
Now, this does bring up the question of legality when it comes to wild camping.
I'm going to come to that in a second.
Okay,
so what we're basically looking at is the wild part of wild camping. Mm. Now, again, there are people that will pitch on a normal campsite and have not their £20 disposable tents, but say for example hikers, hill walkers, climbers, people that go out into the countryside.
I think you just described me there.
Yeah, people that go out in the countryside because they are doing an activity.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe they're going up to Snowdonia or to Cumbria or whatever.
Or it could even be geocaching.
Yeah, they might be doing that. However, you still get disrespectful ones of those that
unfortunately
don't take their rubbish home.
Oh.
That
really is the worst.
And the kind of another aspect to wild camping is fire. Because for me,
it's a big one. It's a big.
For me,
big topic.
Wild camping ultimately is to cook your dinner over an open fire.
Yeah.
And again, I'll discuss the different options for that. But you might be just a backpacker who's got a little gas cooker,
mm-hmm.
and you're out there, and so you're using a gas cooker and blah blah blah, and that's fine. That's wild camping, but you might still be in your fluorescent tent and in your fluorescent cagoule, and the wildlife is going to never come near you because it's going to run away. Whereas wild camping, in my mind, is to blend in with the environment.
Yeah.
And to be able to
kind of become invisible.
And
almost.
To lean against a tree and to have all of the nature to not know you're there.
Yeah, because that was the thing. When I went camping the other day, when it was dark, I had like barking deer, there were badgers around, lots of owls and birds hooting and doing birdie things in trees.
Yeah, and that's enjoying nature. Yet in other times, I've seen people that have been posting up on social media. Nobody in particular, but you see these photographs on social media.
Oh yeah, they're very prevalent.
And you'll get a picture which shows somebody's tent, and the picture's taken from inside the tent. And they've got, in the bottom of the picture so the tent door's open, they've got their feet crossed, so all you're seeing is their feet, with or without boots. And you're looking through that entrance, and this is the view. This is the beautiful view that this wild camper has got. And they're maybe on the top of Stanage Edge in the Peak District.
Because I think they had a lot of problems up there during
did.
COVID.
They did. Well, again, we'll come back to that, I think. But so you'll see this beautiful picture saying of the tranquil, view out across the valleys, or you're in Cumbria and you can, you're seeing Ullswater or Windermere out, into the distance and the sun setting. Yeah.
You're trying to make me go on holiday, aren't you?
and it's wonderful. And you think, oh, this is beautiful wild camping at its best. You're just there, sitting there, seeing a sunset or the sunrise through your tent. However, then you see somebody else's photograph that is taken at the same time that person took their photograph, facing in the opposite direction. And there's the guy's feet sticking out the tent, and there's 30 other brightly coloured tents pitched left, right and centre all around the place, with everybody fighting to try and get that perfect photograph. And, oh, hello mate, how you doing? And having a chat. And this isn't wild camping.
Yeah.
You got 30 tents pitched in a...
I must say, going camping, I never want to go camping and go somewhere to just be around some more people doing camping.
No.
I want to be in the middle of nowhere, alone.
Which is the essence of wild camping.
Yeah.
So going back to your campsite experience, for example, to sum up exactly the kind of things that occur that make you say, oh, I don't want to go on a paid pitch, is, we went to that site down again. It was in Cornwall. We turned up. They gave us an allocated pitch number. We pitched our tent up on the allocated pitch number. The instructions were each pitch has a numbered post.
Yeah.
Make sure that post is directly in the centre of your pitch.
Yes.
So I did pitch the tent up. It's the centre. Gave it half an hour. I had one of the officials from the camping site coming down saying, I'm sorry, we've had a complaint, you've got to move your tent.
And considering, to add some context to this, the only other people in the field were the people in the caravan next to us.
Caravan with an awning next to us.
Considering they could have put us anywhere on any pitch on this field, they decided to put us right next to this other person.
Exactly.
Who we never actually saw.
No. They kind of snuck around, didn't they?
Yeah.
But
Very
anyway,
weird.
the point was they said, move your tent. I said, I'm not moving my tent. And they said, well, I'm afraid we've had a complaint from the people next door. You're too close to them. And this is something you get on paid campsites.
Can be very finicky, can't it?
It's like, do not go within 25, 30 feet of anybody else. But I'd followed the rules.
Yeah.
And I showed him the rule card that they gave me. And I said, look, go around the back of the tent. You can see the dead centre. I'm not moving my tent.
Yeah. I followed your rule book to the letter.
Exactly. And I'm all
no matter how stupid they are.
I'm pitched up now and I'm not taking it down. Oh, he said, oh, right, okay. Well, look, can I take that back to the office and show them in the office? I thought, well, you should know this anyway. But there you go. And then he comes back down and says, okay, it's fine. He says, all right, I've had a word. Don't worry, stay there. Probably why we never saw the neighbours after that, because they didn't want to tackle us. But then that evening, do you remember what happened? We had the front. Now, we were in
is this the fire story?
A 1970s canvas frame tent. So if you can imagine this tent, it's kind of like brown and beige, and the front of it has a door and a plastic window.
Carry on camping style.
That's it, with wonderful 1970s curtains that are like orange and brown.
Is that the one with the floral pattern?
Yes, it's orange and brown flowers. Bought by my parents in the 1970s. And we'd unzipped the whole front and rolled it to one side. So the whole front of the tent is open. It's like an 8-man tent and there's 3 of us.
Very spacey.
Very spacey. 3 separate sleeping compartments and a kitchen compartment. And I'd already checked on the campsite, because coming back to the fire thing for a moment, campsites either they won't allow you to have a fire.
Yeah.
Or they will allow you to have a barbecue.
Under certain conditions.
As long as it's
or in a certain place.
As long as it's over, say, 12 inches off the floor, so it doesn't scorch the grass, or you're only allowed to have it in that certain designated barbecue area. Checked with that campsite, and they'd already told me that I could have a barbecue off the floor. So that was fine. So I put my firebox there, which was 12 inches high, or about 18 inches. I put a steel plate underneath it just to make sure that nothing was going to scorch the floor. And we've got charcoal in it. And we'd cooked our dinner, and then we're sitting around it.
Quite merrily,
just enjoying the sun's gone down, it's starting to get dark. And then this guy comes running
across the field.
No!
Oh
no,
my God!
Ah! He's like, what's the problem? You're all going to die! You're going to die, you'll suffocate me.
This is not an over-exaggeration on this fact.
Guy's got so many people have been dying because they've been suffocating.
Carbon monoxide poisoning!
Fumes off the charcoal. I said, I'm outside my tent, and the tent has got this, 20-foot hole in the front of it. It's made of canvas, and it doesn't even have a stitching ground sheet.
It's not like it's a little tiny nylon tent.
Yeah, that's the problem. The nylon tents with sealed ground sheets become basically a carbon monoxide bag.
Yeah, chamber.
Because there's no oxygen flow. But where you have an old-fashioned canvas tent, well, drafts are coming through it all the time.
Yeah.
And let's face it, I mean, you've been on loads of period reenactment camps with me. Then you have people with big, medieval campaign tents.
Yeah, yeah.
And they literally, within these circular tents, the ones you see in all the old Hollywood movies, they've got the roof is held up like a spoked wheel. And they have three.
That's right.
And generally, they have 3 chains hanging off the wheel with a steel bowl with loads of charcoal in it, in the tent, keeping them warm all night long.
Yeah.
With no fear of suffocation, because it's a canvas tent and there's like no ground sheet.
But would you say that people have become so indoctrinated to kind of this kind of idea that camping is such an alien thing for humans to do?
Yeah, but unfortunately, what people do, and don't underestimate this, Zach, because people are very stupid in certain respects sometimes, and they'll have a small nylon tent which doesn't breathe, has a stitched in ground sheet, and then they stick a ground-based barbecue in the front of the tent and zip it up. They've done their cooking, zip it up, it's still burning.
Yeah.
And then
They probably think, oh, that's going to keep me warm.
And of course, what it does, pushes all the oxygen out,
Yep.
and then they suffocate. It's happened. It's very, very unfortunate. And please, anybody listening to this, don't do that. But
Get a canvas tent.
Get a canvas tent. But to have people running across the field at you, waving their arms, going, are you thinking, what's happening today?
What has happened to
camping.
humanity?
And what's happened to my camping experience? So it was like, no, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, it's not like you get a refund for that.
Yeah, I'm not
just because somebody's.
I'm not doing this.
You.
I'm not camping on another paid site for as long as I can avoid it. Okay?
Yes, very much so.
So we're back to going and camping, wild camping, and the legality of it.
Okay. I did ask about this earlier.
Yeah. So wild camping is all part of, if you like, the right to roam. Now, the right to roam is allowed in Scotland, not in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So in Scotland, you can pretty much pitch up anywhere you want if you do it respectfully.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like a minimum distance from any kind of road, or is that in Dartmoor?
No, in Dartmoor, as you say, that's been in the news at the beginning of this year, because obviously
it's been a bit up in the air, isn't it?
Controversy over that. I think we've touched on that in other podcasts. Where they kind of banned wild camping. But
I think that was actually the Devonshire folklore episode, so check that out.
So, right. Well, wild camping on Dartmoor has been kind of allowed. Landowners have allowed people to camp there without any issues. Off the top of my head, it was a case that you can't go on there with vehicles, but you could walk onto the moor and pitch up, as long as you were, as you say, away from the road. And of course, any rubbish or anything you meant to take back with you. However, because of COVID, because people couldn't fly abroad, people were just heading to the coast, heading to the moors, heading to Snowdonia.
Like in the hundreds.
Even when they were being told you're not allowed.
You're not allowed. Again, that was Stanage Edge, wasn't it?
I mean, there was places like Snowdon where people weren't meant to even be out, and there was a 2.5-hour queue at the summit to try and get your picture up on the summit. Queue.
What? No.
And it's like, this is the mentality of some people. This is not going out in the wild. This is just hideousness in my mind.
Yeah.
The coast. People were going to the coast, weren't they? There was, I think it was the mayor of Bournemouth, was on the news. She was on the news. She was on the beach pleading with people to go home, because and they had the big sign on the pier saying Bournemouth is closed, and people weren't meant to be there, and there were so many. They'd blocked off all the parking to try and stop people parking. They were parking on the roundabouts. They closed all the toilets. People were literally getting in the sand dunes and defecating in the sand dunes and everything. There was literally crap everywhere, and rubbish, waist height rubbish everywhere. And they were going into the countryside and doing that. And I remember in Scotland, now this is the thing, right to roam in Scotland is allowed, but the wardens around Loch Lomond were basically clamping down, banning all wild camping, because people were just coming out of Glasgow. People were coming from all different places.
Yeah. With no idea of actually how to perform wild camping in the correct manner.
They were doing exactly what I described earlier. Pitching up tents, breaking trees, trying to set fire to them, leaving the tents, leaving their bottles and booze.
Utter devastation.
Devastation and hideous.
So didn't that also have the knock-on effect that I believe a lot of these like barbecues and things that were left, weren't they causing a lot of wildfires?
Wildfires, scorched patches on the ground, totally dangerous, especially if you're like going off wherever you've got like a heather moorland, or of course if it's a peat moorland, because peat burns, you know.
Yeah.
Even in a forest, if you have a fire in a forest and think that's fine, the duff, which is basically the forest floor, which can be, depending on the type of forest, but it's built up of layers of leaves or pine needles, and it can be incredibly flammable, and it can burn and glow and catch the roots of trees and then spread underground via the roots of the trees. No. So we'll cover fire in a second, but wild camping right to roam is allowed in Scotland, but not Northern Ireland, Wales and England, which causes a lot of controversy, because people go, this isn't fair, I should have the right to roam, this is really, against my human rights. Everybody has stolen the land, because the land is owned by private landowners, it's owned by councils, it's owned by Forestry Commission, National Trust, places like that, and you are not permitted to go and camp on this land. You have common land. The village we have has a common.
Yeah, it does.
Where you have the right to roam around on the common, but you can't camp on it. Okay. However, saying that, and I know there's a lot of people that are very up in arms about having the facility to have the right to roam. So when it comes to the right to roam, I have a kind of split over whether we should or we shouldn't, because when you say allow everybody to have open access to everywhere,
that then gets rid of that filter, doesn't it?
It gets rid of the filter, and then the people that ruin it
will come in the masses.
They will ruin it, and of course the people that would say, this is what I've always wanted, then suddenly will say, nope, sorry, you can't have this. No, not happening, never again, because they do it without respect. So then from an environmental perspective, there's a lot of habitats that are very delicate. We have very precious wildflowers and things that need to be protected. You can't have people just stomping across these areas.
People don't, like bluebells and things, people don't know about that at all.
A friend of ours, JJ, JJ's, if you're listening to this, go and check out JJ Outdoors YouTube channel. He went to one of the woods where he had permission.
Okay, we'll have to get to that in a second.
Yeah, but he went there to have a permission camp and found that some people have been in there and they just trashed the place.
Yeah, no respect whatsoever.
They've been digging all the bluebells up, just ripping the place apart. The guy was literally in tears over this. And that's the kind of thing that happens if you just say, yeah, go on,
do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want. So, however, what I will bring up is that if you go onto the internet and you look up footpathmap.co.uk, it will give you a map of all publicly accessible footpaths and bridleways across the whole of England, Scotland and Wales.
Yeah.
If you do that, you will discover, if you zoom out, there are thousands upon thousands of miles.
Different routes.
You have over 140,000 miles of public access footpaths in the UK.
Yeah, it's more you could ever want.
20,000 miles of bridleways in the UK. 16,000 miles of national cycle networks in the UK. Yeah, and people complain they don't have access, but if you actually look at that map, I've got to ask you, when you went out the other day and you followed the footpaths, did you have an urge to say, I'm following the footpath along the edge of this farmer's field with his crops in the field, but I want the right to be able to walk straight through his crops in any direction
without
I want to be there.
Being unimpeded whatsoever.
Unimpeded. I don't care. I want the right to be able to walk across his crops.
No.
Now, you might say, if I had the right to do that, I wouldn't do that out of respect, because this is the farmer's
crop. It's his livelihood.
Exactly. But lots of people don't. We go back to what happened during COVID.
Yeah.
People were just
trashing
of people
the place,
were just walking across farmers' fields.
No, you can't do that.
They're just doing that. Totally no respect. But you've got a huge network, a massive network of public access paths.
And I know you mentioned that, was it a website?
Yes,
website. But again, I'll go back to the actual having a physical map. The Explorer OS maps are literally so good when it comes to all these navigations and these footpaths, because it really helps you kind of plot out a route.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So-
if you lose your way, when you can get the hang of actually navigating using a physical map, you can actually work out where you are based upon certain landmarks and features of the landscape.
Yep.
It's really fun.
But what I will say, there are still, again, lots of open access land where farmers do allow people to go into woodlands, and it would be marked down on those OS maps. There's lots of national parks, that you are more than welcome to go wandering around, and everything else. It's the hiking, to a great extent, is not a problem, because you do have a huge amount of access. And let's face it, if you are hiking your way through Snowdonia or Cumbria, and it's 10 o'clock at night, no, you're not really going to expect a warden to come charging out of the woods saying you're not allowed to walk here and things like that.
Because you're in the middle of nowhere.
You're in the middle of nowhere. And that's kind of the essence of where we're going with the wild camping. Now, that's where you have the issue. You can walk, you can ride your horse, you can cycle, you can do all these things, but you don't have a right to camp. That's what annoys a lot of people. You do have a right to camp on Dartmoor, which you did, then you didn't, now you have, because landowners have signed up to a kind of a scheme where they're getting paid some money to allow people to have that access, and then of course that's complaining because people say that now the private landowners are making money out of the fact that...
Now there's for and against on either way you look at that.
Exactly, but we'll get to how we get round that now.
Okay.
Of course, camping, wild camping, is illegal. It is not legal unless, this is key, unless you have the landowner's permission.
Because I know you mentioned that earlier, didn't you?
I did. So if there's a particular place you want to go, if you ask the landowner's permission, you might be surprised.
I might go, sure, go ahead.
That's fine. You might be out hiking and you might come past a farm and you say, "Excuse me, Mr. Farmer, Mrs. Farmer, I'm tired. Is it okay if I just pitch my tent up?" And if they say yes, no problem at all. You've got all the rights in the world to do that because they've allowed you to. So it's not a be-all and end-all that there's no right to roam. You can ask for permission, and a lot of people will give you permission. But at the same time, a lot of people won't want you walking through their backyard, won't want you on their private land. That's a subject for another discussion. So you can camp, wild camp, if you ask for permission. However, you might not want to ask permission. You might not even know who owns the land you're on. You might not plan that far. And so we come into another stage of wild camping.
Okay,
which we'll come to. But you did mention, or I've mentioned, about fire.
Yes.
Fire is, again, not allowed.
It's a hot topic.
It's a hot topic. It's illegal to set a fire on any private land in England, Scotland, and Wales. And I'm not sure or familiar with the laws in Scotland, but I'm assuming they're probably the same. Nobody wants people just suddenly sparking up open fires here, there, and everywhere, especially when it comes to the summertime, and people want to go out wild camping in the summertime, and everything is tinder dry.
Big no-no.
Big no-no. Yes, you can have a bonfire in your own private garden. You can do things like that. There might be restrictions if you live in a smokeless zone, but you can be in your garden, have a bonfire. You can have a fire pit on your patio and things like that. But out there in the wilds, no, you can't legally have a fire. So what do? Okay, we want to go wild camping. We don't have the right to go and wild camp unless we ask the permission of the landowner. And we're not allowed to have a fire unless we ask the permission of the landowner. Which brings us to probably the only way around being able to wild camp in the UK. And when I say the UK, I'm talking about Northern Ireland, Wales and England, because obviously you do have the right to roam in Scotland. Not necessarily the right to have a fire, though. Need to check up on that one. There are 3 basic rules to follow. And in fact, I would say that the better term for this is not to say these are the 3 rules for wild camping, But I would say these are the 3 rules for another type of camping, which is kind of the same, but we haven't mentioned yet. And that's stealth camping.
Okay. Okay.
Because technically, wild camping at its best should be stealth camping. I don't like, when I'm out in the wilds, seeing bright red tents pitched all over the place.
No.
Again, they might not be leaving their mess, but you just think of, say, the base camp in the Himalayas for Mount Everest. It's notorious. You'd say if you were going to climb Mount Everest and you've hiked into the Himalayas and you've reached base camp and you've pitched your tents up, that's going to be like the ultimate wild camping in the middle of nowhere. There is tons of human waste in bags there that nobody ships out. Rubbish everywhere. It is a complete...
Just logistically, it's not going to be able to.
It is hideous from photos and video I've seen of base camp in the Himalayas. It's horrible. And all these bright tents. Now, you can argue that obviously bright tents and things, and you need, if you're going, say, into an environment where...
Like a hostile environment.
It's hostile. So you're going for, say, some winter hill walking, and you want to pitch up in the snow.
Yeah, you want to be visible.
You want to be visible. But during the summer months, in the lowlands, on the, the downs and places, you want to blend in more, because the trouble is wildlife will go, well, I'm off. I don't want to go nowhere near that. There's nothing worse than seeing a hillside peppered with bright yellow and red and blue tents.
It just takes you out of it. You out the experience.
That's why we come to stealth camping and wild camping. What you need to do is blend in with your environment. I have to say I'm kind of biased on this, because I'm going to say the best people at wild camping, and especially stealth wild camping, are bushcrafters and survivalists. You got your backpackers, your hill walkers and everybody, and they're out there with their luminous tents and everything, and all
that they've got from like go outdoors and things. And they always break, and they're always a bit of crap, really.
But I always find that the bushcrafters and survivalists are the ones that respect the environment totally. Not saying anybody doesn't respect the environment, if I'm treading on your toes out there listening to this, but the ones that follow these 3 rules that I have already mentioned, and I'm going to tell you what they are in a moment. They follow those without even thinking about it, okay? And they blend into their environment. So much so you just don't even know they're there. There's I watched a video the other day from a lady called Wild Bear on YouTube.
Yeah, I think you
mentioned. And she was literally wild camping, stroke stealth camping, off at the edge of a road in some woodland. She found a little divot in the ground.
Is she based in the UK?
Yeah, she's based in the UK. Interesting thing, single lady. And there are more than, there's not just Wild Bear, there's loads of other ones out there that go wild camping, single ladies by themselves. And you would imagine that would be something that would be really quite scary for single ladies, to go out into the wilds by themselves. But she does it, she does a good job of it, she knows exactly what she's doing, she takes all the safety precautions. But she was off the road, she put her tarp in over the top of a little divot in the ground, put her sleeping system in under the tarp, actually put some camo netting over the tarp, and then spread some leaves over it. Couldn't see her camp at all. She just disappeared. And in the morning when she left, you wouldn't even know she's there. That is the essence of wild camping. So these 3 rules.
Okay, listen up, listeners.
Yeah, this is what you got to do. If you want to go wild camping, if you want to go and enjoy the outside and nature and blend in and ask yourself, you're there to see nature and for nature not to be scared
to
off by
immerse yourself within it.
Exactly, and to enjoy it, okay? Which also means having an open fire if you do it correctly. These 3 rules are key. 1, always arrive late. Pitch your campsite, you pitch your tent. If you're on property that you don't have permission, okay, you arrive late, so you don't disturb anybody and nobody sees you arrive, okay? That doesn't mean go and pitch on somebody's front garden.
No.
Rule 2, leave early. Sun comes up, you get all your stuff together and off you go. Simple as that. And the 3rd and the most important is leave no trace.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you arrive, you want to leave the area exactly as you found it, so nobody knows you're there. And for example, if somebody came into my back garden at midnight and I've already gone to bed, and they pitched a tent in my back garden, and then they left at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I got up and I went out and had a cup of coffee in my back garden, and there was no sign that anybody had been there, I wouldn't know the difference.
Of course.
I'm not offended. Nothing has been damaged. Yeah, there's nothing. Nobody's disrespected anything. It's like, it's no different from a badger coming into the garden, a fox passing through, a hedgehog. Somebody's been and gone. They haven't defecated anywhere. They haven't ruined anything. You wouldn't even know if somebody's been there. And that's the essence of wild camping, stealth camping.
And the difference is when it's actually the other way around and there is evidence.
Yeah, and then that is
then
the
you
problem.
know that somebody has been there.
And you go, and that's what I think. That's probably what happened down in Dartmoor, when I think people had been on some land that the landowner had found. They'd been there, and they'd, I don't know the specifics, but he had complained that damage had been done. Now, I don't know. If you're a landowner, regardless of whether you own a little back garden or a little front garden or several acres, you still don't want to go out there and find that there's toilet paper strewn everywhere and
or
human
whatever.
feces and bottles and cans.
Just because you have more land doesn't somehow decrease that land's value.
No, and somebody's ripped down your sapling trees that you planted last year and tried burning them, you know? No, I'm sorry. So, wild camping is a fantastic thing, but you must do it with respect.
Of course.
And to just arrive late. Unless you do find yourself you're in an environment where you are literally in the middle of nowhere, where you aren't disturbing anybody. Nobody, there's no wardens are going to come past because they're just not going to be out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to necessarily arrive late. You could be there all day.
Yeah.
But the point is, you're not sticking out like a sore thumb, and you're not damaging anything. You're not destroying the environment or having any kind of impact on the environment.
No negative impacts.
No negative impact. And you must leave without trace, which, of course, one of the biggest things when it comes to that is people having fires. Now, I like to have an open fire because I feel like you're getting back to nature. You're getting back to
that kind of primal side almost.
Yeah, the primal side of existence, where to just be able to create fire and to cook your food over the fire and to warm yourself by the fire and to tell stories or to talk around the fire. It's just such a primal thing to human beings.
Yeah.
And it is possible to do that, but you need to be able to know how to prep a fire, look at the environment, to be able to make the decision, I'd like a fire, but I can't have a fire. This isn't the right place for it. Or I don't have
the resources.
The resources to make a fire, because otherwise I'm going to impact on my surroundings, because I'm not going to start processing wood by chopping it off trees that obviously are living things. You want dead wood and such like,
Yeah.
Same goes with being on the beach. People on the beach think, oh, I'm on the sand, it's not a problem. People have,
it's not like burying it's okay,
I know,
like in the sand.
They
just bury those disposable barbecues in the sand. It's like, come on, guys.
Sand dunes because they got a bit of shelter from the sea breeze, and then you find all these barbecues half buried.
Yeah, because they've obviously the tides come in and out, and it's obviously uncovered them.
Yeah, and of course things here. But you can see that primal urge to go onto a beach, to gather driftwood, to have a fire. And again, you can do that on a beach with respect, and your whole fire you can disappear. You can disappear and leave no trace of it if you do it properly.
Yeah.
Or of course you can take a little folding firebox with you.
Of course, yeah.
Take a little folding firebox, contain your fire in the firebox, and of course once it's cooled down and burnt out, you can clear your ashes up, take them with you, disperse the area, cover it up like you've never even been there. It is possible. But if you can't have a fire, don't have a fire. But what you must not do is to disrespect your environment and have a fire where you're going to suddenly cause a forest fire or a heathland fire or anything.
Damage of any small or large scale.
It is just not worth it.
No.
So if you can follow those rules when it comes to wild camping, to arrive late, leave early, and leave no trace, you're probably good to go. You don't need, and because of the amount of public access that we actually do have in the UK, before you start screaming and cursing and stomping your feet saying it's not fair, I want to be able to go wherever I want to go.
Yeah.
If you actually look into it, you have a huge amount of places.
There's so much to explore. You are spoilt for choice as to what to explore.
But if you follow those rules, you can pretty much wild camp anywhere you like. Yes, on paper it's illegal, but you can do it, and nobody will even know you've done it. And
again, it's going back to that leave no trace, isn't it?
Leave no trace. And if you've left no trace and you've harmed nothing and nobody in that,
and nobody knows you've been there,
then there's no
problem
issue at all. No problem. It's when you are, destroying the environment.
Yes, it's where you have been noticed, where you have caused
issues.
And
those are the people that have all the negative knock-on effects to the true wild campers out there.
Yes.
But going back to the beginning, wild camping is not parking in a field in your camper van, having a roast dinner and switching your electric lights on and off and go, woo, this is wild camping. But yeah, so if you want to go wild camping, go for it. It's a right that I think everybody should have. And I feel that you all have the right to do so as long as you follow those 3
do it
rules.
Respectfully.
That's the key thing.
So that brings us to a fun part of the podcast called Quote of the Week. And I think I know what the quote of the week should be this week, but I'm going to ask you, Buzz, if you have any suggestions for quote of the week.
I do have a quote, since you ask. And it's a quote, it's my own quote. And it's a quote that I generally tell people if we're going out in the woods and we're doing any bushcraft and things. And that is, always remember you are a visitor in a forest. Take awe and respect with you. Take away peace and thanks. And leave nothing but your gratitude.
Well put.
That's my quote of the week.
For me, again, it was going to go back to leave no trace. There we are.
There we go.
That's probably
the simplified version.
That's the core of this episode.
Yeah,
leave no trace.
If everybody went out and
conducted themselves in a respectful manner,
then there wouldn't be half or even a fraction of the problems that we have
when
it comes to camping. And of course that would probably annoy those campsites that obviously make their money from people paying.
Shh.
But don't tell them that.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes. That's a big, stealthy goodbye from Zak.
And I'm off to enjoy the forest goodbye from Buzz. Goodbye.
You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music and Apple Podcasts. Check out the Zak Wylde Productions social media pages on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, or visit the Zak Wylde Productions website at www.zakwyldeproductions.com. Please get in contact, we'd love to find out how you're listening to us. So get in touch in the comments and don't forget to check out Zak Wylde Productions on Patreon to become an official ZWP patron today.